Hello, mathematicians. Today we're going to be learning about 1 and 2 step equations. And in these equations, we're subtracting two terms. So we're going to solve for x when we're subtracting two terms. So here I have x minus 23 is equal to 45. And remember that our goal is to isolate our x to find the value of x. So because I have x minus 23, I know that the inverse additive property tells us that I'm going to add its opposite in order to get 0 and cancel it out. So instead of minus 23, I'm going to add positive 23 because that's its opposite. And whatever I do on one side, I have to do on the other side. So here I'm going to add 23 as well. So negative 23 and positive 23 cancel each other out, and they equal 0. On the left side, I'm just left with x. So x is equal to 45 plus 23. 5 plus 3 is 8, and 4 plus 2 is 6, so x is equal to 68. Now, if I'd like to go back and check my work, all I have to do is take the x value that we got, substitute it for x, and see if this equation is true. So, 68 minus 23, that gives us 45. So because we got 68 minus 23 and we got the same thing here, we know that this equation is true. So x is equal to 68. So here I have another problem. X minus negative 9 is equal to 40. Now before we start solving for x, remember that two negative signs will become positive, because if we distribute the negative to the negative, so negative times a negative, it equals a positive. So here we could first rewrite this as x plus 9 is equal to 40. And now because I have x plus 9 is equal to 40, if I want to isolate our x, we have to subtract by 9 on both sides, because a positive and a negative cancel each other out. So positive 9 and a negative 9 are 0. And whatever I do on the left side, I have to do on the right side. So 40 minus 9. So here I'm left with x is equal to 40 minus 9 is 31. And if I'd like to go back and check to see if 31 is x, we could either substitute it to our first equation or our second equation. It's probably a little bit easier to substitute it to our second one here. So 31 plus 9 is equal to 40. So that's how we know that x is equal to 31, and that's true. So here I have 27 minus x is equal to negative 42. Now our goal is to isolate x, so we're going to get rid of the 27. And remember, even though there's not a sign in front of it, we know that the 27 is positive. So if we want to cancel it out, we're going to have to subtract by 27 on both sides. And this cancels out. On the left side, I'm left with negative x is equal to, so here we have negative 42 minus 27. And since the signs are the same, we are going to add and keep the negative sign. So 2 plus 7 is 9. 4 plus 2 is 6, and our answer is negative. So here we have negative 69. And now we're not done just yet, because we have negative x is equal to negative 69. And we just want the x by itself. So in order to get rid of the negative in front of it, be mindful that the coefficient here is negative 1. So we'd have to divide both sides by negative 1 to get the x by itself. So if we divide by negative 1, and then we divide again here by negative 1, negative 1 divided by negative 1 is 1x. And remember, we don't need to rewrite that because 1x and x are the same thing. And now negative 69 divided by negative 1 is positive 69. So our x is equal to positive 69. So if we wanted to go back and check to see if this is true, we could rewrite it here and substitute for x. So 27 minus 69. And here I have a positive and a negative, so I'm going to subtract. If I subtract those two, I get 42. And I keep the sign of the one with the greatest absolute value, which in this case is 69. So we end up with negative 42, which makes this equation true. So x is equal to 69. So here I have negative 24 minus x is equal to negative 8. Now, if I want to isolate our x, the first thing I'm going to have to get rid of is the negative 24. And in order to do so, we're going to do the opposite, and we're going to add 24 to it. And whatever we do on the left side, we do on the right side. So I'm going to add 24 to it. And negative 24 and positive 24 cancel out. I'm left with negative x on the left side is equal to. Now here, we don't have the same sign, so we're going to subtract and then keep the sign of the one with the greatest absolute value. So 24 minus 8 is 16. And the number with the greatest absolute value in this case is positive 24. So our answer is positive 16. And now remember that here we have negative x. Remember that this is a coefficient of negative 1, so we're not quite done yet. So in order to get x by itself, we're going to have to divide both sides by negative 1. So negative 1 divided by negative 1 is just 1. So 1x is equal to 16 divided by negative 1 is negative 16. So x is equal to negative 16. So if we go back to check our answer, we know that x is equal to negative 16, so we're going to have negative 24 minus negative 16. And remember that these two negatives here mean that it's a negative distributed to a negative, so a negative times a negative, which make that a positive. So negative 24 plus 16. Since the signs are different, we're going to subtract and keep the sign of the one with the greatest absolute value. So 24 minus 16 is 8. And the one with the greatest absolute value is negative 24. So it's going to be negative 8, and therefore this is true. So we know that x is equal to negative 16.